Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Gifted as well as the latest episode of The Flash. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of The Gifted, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of The Flash. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of The Gifted. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode. Let's start off with the inner circle situation. Well, there's a lot of things that are going to break down. For one, we learned about Reva and her connection to Ryan. I figured it was a situation where they were kind of both benefiting, but it turns out in actuality, Reva is actually the one that kind of made Ryan who he is. I guess she gave him the money and power and position to do what he's doing. So I'm guessing in the long run of things, it is kind of what I thought it was. Like, Reva wants a war because if she can get people on her side, she can rally people up and get more mutants even more riled up. Or maybe, like I said, I brought it up before, maybe she has an ulterior motive, but that's my initial thought. Like, Ryan thinks he's like, oh, I'm benefiting from this and stuff like that, but in actuality, not knowing that Reva is actually kind of, playing. I mean, because I was thinking like, oh, maybe he doesn't know that she's a mutant, but it's like, no, she made it clear that she was a mutant. He was reluctant to work with her, but still. So it's like, okay, so it has to be the thing of like you, because basically what we end up finding out later on is that Ryan was given a mission by Reva to send, some purifiers to do. That mission is to go and wipe out the Morlocks. Now, which is interesting considering the Morlocks haven't done anything. They've literally avoided the entire fight. They didn't choose to work with the Mutant Underground, nor have they chose to work with the Inner Circle. They've kept to themselves. They're innocent people, and Reva sent people there to kill them. Why? Because I think she wants to step in and be like, oh, here I am, Reva, savior of the mutants, and she's going to come in and just like, oh, rally them up, because these are the Morlocks, those who were, because she already swayed a lot of like the Mutant Underground people. The Inner Circle kind of swayed them with their actions and stuff like that, and the way humans have kind of reacted to everything. But I think this is Reva kind of getting even more supportive, like why the Inner Circle is even more needed. It's kind of like what she's playing. That's what I think she's aiming at. So that is kind of interesting. It's interesting considering, like I said earlier, like Ryan was a nobody. Because even Reva was like, oh, the fact of the matter is you're just trying to ride this wave of 715 of what happened and trying to benefit from it. But it seems like he was working at it. Like he's kind of a low of the low. He was never really in the powerful position that he is in now. It's like all that is thanks to Reva. So that's crazy. I'm sure that's going to change a lot of people's minds. Even like, no matter how much you believe in the cause and everything, once they find out the truth of, wait, she's backed essentially the purifiers, which is super messed up because if you're a mutant, you help power up the purifier. So I think that kind of speaks volume. I think the moment that truth comes out, a lot of people are going to turn against Reva because she's going to say that it's all for that dream and stuff like that. But once again, it's like, no, Reva's doing this for herself because I think legitimately, she just wants to be like the next Magneto. She's willing, but the thing is, Magneto would never go, I mean, to be fair, I don't know. I'm basing this on the movies, which I don't remember all that well, but he's always been very pro-mutant. I mean, maybe he's done some super messed up stuff like that in the comic books. Like, obviously, if it's fighting against mutants who, it's like, hey, you don't agree with me, so you got to get out of the way. Maybe that's kind of the mentality she has, but I feel like Magneto wouldn't go to the extent that he does, like the way that Reva is going about this whole situation. But like I said, I don't know the comic books that well, so maybe I'm 100% wrong. But what's also interesting about the Inner Circle situation is, oh, something happened to Max, and it's like, oh boy. I was like, oh yeah, they wouldn't know immediately that he died. I mean, I guess, it was a fire, probably the body got burned out, so probably hard to identify. But they kind of find out later on, so I'm guessing like they were able to track his car down and stuff like that, or, it was interesting, and you could tell Lorna was getting nervous. Like, everything was kind of getting shut down around them. Like, Reva was closing ranks because it's like, hey, we got to shut it down, everything down, because we don't know. It might be a rat amongst us. And Lorna's kind of like, whoa, you can't trust us? You're asking us to fight a war? And she's like, and you could tell Reva's getting suspicious because, like, why? The fact of the matter is, you, out of anyone, I would expect would be most riled up if it's like, oh yeah, like there was potentially a traitor amongst us. But at every corner and at every chance, Lorna was like, oh, maybe there's something more to this and whatnot. So, but the moment they were like, we looked at the computers and checked and we know who did it, the moment I already knew it before I was like, Sage, because technically the last person to sign in and check all that stuff was under Sage's login, because it's not, because they don't know that Lorna can use her powers like that. That's kind of like something, the only person she shared that with is Marcos. So the fact of the matter is, like, when she logged in, she did it as Sage, and so I was like, poor Sage. It's like she's about to get groomed, and it turns out she did. But I was like, she's like, what can I do to prove how trustworthy I am? It's also interesting too. I did not know that about her. Apparently, the Frost ability doesn't work they can't get inside of her head because of the way her head is kind of like a computer. It's like basically like too much data and it's moving too much. It's a whole bunch of ones and zeros just because of her brain. I mean, the brain is kind of like a computer anyway, but it's even more so like with her mutant ability. So they couldn't get inside of her head, which would have proved her innocence, which is like, damn. It worked out for Lorna, sadly, because Lorna didn't want anyone to die in that situation. Because that's why she's like, she feels guilty because it's like, Sage died so I could stay undercover, but it doesn't make it any easier. Because like, because it's like, no matter what, the fact of the matter is that, Lorna's trying to stop all this. She's not trying to get people killed, especially someone that was an ally and a friend back when they were in the Mutant Underground, as well as with the Inner Circle. So it's like she harbored no bad feelings for Sage. So it's just kind of sad, things have kind of come down to this for them. And even Andy being like, yeah, I had no choice, but like Reva had no other choice but to put her down. Like she betrayed us. Max died. And it's like, that means if the time came, that means also Lorna can't even confide in him like about this and that. It's like, no, because Andy's not going to see things that way. He's completely invested into the Inner Circle. So it's not like she'd be able to sway him. And if she said anything, he'd turn her over in an instant. So once again, Lorna is in a position to be safe, but I think we're probably going to see Reva be a lot more paranoid going forward. Maybe she'll be, I don't know, it's definitely going to be interesting. I mean, like I said, it takes a lot of stuff off of Lorna, but who's to say like she isn't paranoid about like, well, I'm going to still keep an eye on everyone just in case to see if there's another traitor amongst us and not just Sage. Maybe she wasn't working alone type of thing. We'll see on that front. Another aspect to this episode was the whole situation with the von Strucker family. Now that's interesting. There's something I completely misinterpreted that the whole Reed situation about him being younger when he was angry and stuff like that. I thought like, okay, because of his mutant abilities, that was kind of what was going on. Like, the thing tapped into his mutant abilities and was kind of like making him very aggro and stuff like that. But it's like, no, because the way Caitlin put it, she's like, there's darkness in everyone. And I'm like, but there must be like a specific darkness in their bloodline that's tied to their abilities in some shape or form. So because she was like, the fact of the matter is the serum can't fight the darkness. Like that's something you got to essentially do on your own, Because the whole conversation becomes like, okay, so Reed gave Lauren the serum, and there's all the secrets that everybody was keeping. Caitlin, the whole like, because the thing is, Caitlin blames herself because like I pushed Lauren in this position for her to give into her powers and kind of get stronger, all for the sake of trying to get Andy back. Like I pushed her, at the same time she was pushing herself, but she was so desperate to get Andy back, she wasn't willing to kind of see things until now, just like what she was kind of pushing, Lauren towards, because now it's like the Inner Circle almost got her because of everything, but like they can't give her the medicine because it's making her sick, because the whole thing is like, okay, if we give her the medicine, her light might kind of wither away. But if we don't give her the serum, the fact of the matter is the Inner Circle could grab her and we could lose her forever, just like we're potentially losing Andy, And it's just it's a complicated situation on what to do. But Lauren decided, like, I'm not going to do that anymore, because it's like, I think for her, it's like she realizes this is something she has to face and do on her own. It is interesting, though, because in her subconsciously, while she was kind of dealing with everything, she was speaking in German, even though she doesn't know German. So it's like, I don't know what that music box did. Like I said, it seems like it triggered something. Like, I guess the sound, the music of it does something. Maybe there's some like harmonic frequency that resonates with the Von Strucker DNA, whether it be like their X gene or the bloodline, which I guess you can say like the X gene and the bloodline kind of go hand in hand. But still, it's like, how is that whole thing operating? And even to the point that Reed himself is like, yeah, I'm not going to take the serum anymore either. But Caitlin's like, you will die without it. But it's like, I was going to eventually run out anyway. It was a limited supply. But for him, it's like, he's run from it his entire life, because also like the whole aspect of him being a mutant, like that secret and that lie spiraled out to be where they are right now, because it's like, because of that, he didn't know that Andy and Lauren were mutants, and then like he lived the life that he did and not knowing his daughter was keeping that whole secret of being a mutant herself. Like it led to a lot of complications, and it's like things would have been a lot better off if, but my dad hid it from me and everything like that. So it's like hiding who he was, running away from who he was, has caused a lot of problems. Even the more recent things, running from his ex-gene has caused problems now. So it's like he's embracing it now. And that's definitely going to be interesting because it's like, what's the purpose of my power? The fact is, I'm kind of getting almost depressing feeling from this, and maybe I'm wrong about it. But I get the feeling almost like they're doing the thing of like, Reed is going to end up using his powers to try and save Andy or something, and he's going to sacrifice himself. Because it doesn't seem like, because the thing is, Reed's going to die regardless. But I think if he uses his power, it's probably going to escalate his deterioration. I always deteriorating. Like, I always struggle to say that word. You get what I'm trying to say? Like, deterioration. Like, still, I slur it and just, nevertheless. I think that's going to be something we see. But, like, if his power has a purpose, I think it's going to be to save Andy. Like, I think it won't necessarily, it might be Lauren, it might be them as entirely as a family, but it might take Reed sacrificing himself to kind of open Andy's eyes, potentially. I think that's the direction we're going to see. Like I said, he has already kind of got a clock ticking. Maybe there'll be some way around this. Maybe there'll be some cure for him, a permanent one, in some shape or form to kind of stabilize him. But, you know, for now, the clock is ticking down for him. We haven't seen anything really happening yet, but, I mean, who's to say what's going to happen later on in that regard, so. But, obviously, the attack on the Morlocks, you know, Jace is leading the forefront. Even having the, like, you know, you have Ryan rubbing in, like, kind of throwing in his face, like, oh, you can run Sentinel servers, kind of do it the way you want to. Once again, I talked about, you know, the inner circle turning against Reva. They find out the truth. The Purifiers are going to turn against Ryan super fast if they find out, like, no, because it doesn't matter what he represents. The fact of the matter is they'll find out, like, you've been working with a mutant and stuff like that. Your whole message is a lie. You're a hypocrite type of situation. So they might kind of push him out and kind of handle things on their own going forward. I don't know. We'll see. It's actually sad because, like, when it was all said and done, like, they were able to get the women and children out, you know, and, you know, John and Chloe's had that conversation. He's like, don't go back by yourself. But he's like, you said there was nothing noble about dying for a lost cause, or fighting for a lost cause. And Clarice is kind of like, I was wrong. Because I think for her, Clarice had never been in a position where she fought so hard for something she believed in. Like, I think the Mutant Underground, because it was the closest thing she had to a home, so I guess she felt kind of like, okay, I have to fight for this home. But, you know, I don't know, because she feels the same with the Morlocks, so I don't know. I guess because it's a little different, because at least with the Mutant Underground, she could be who she wanted to be, but she still had to hide. Morlocks, she could be 100% open. It's this community and stuff, you know? And sadly, when it's all said and done, you know, Clarice ended up dying to make sure that Erg and that little girl were able to get out. And what makes it even sadder is she died right in front of John's face. Like, they weren't even in the best of places, but the fact is, he was like, if you just call me, I'll come, like, every time. Just make sure you call me first. You know, and it's just kind of sad. Like, you know, her blood, like, flying onto his face. It's Daryl on the ground. And you know it's going to be pissed at Erg. Like, the fact is she died because of you. It's all your fault, like, I think. Because John's going to need somebody to blame. But he's also going to blame Jace. And he's going to come at... I mean, Jace did all the torturing last time. It's like, you wanted a problem. You got me now. Like, the fact is Jace is screwed because... John is going to come after him. Like, John's going to be motivated by revenge and stuff like that. I mean, to be fair, there's a situation of you kind of go, maybe they could do something where they're kind of like, oh, Clarice is still alive. Maybe maybe they take her as a prisoner to kind of torture her or pump her for information. So Clarice could be alive, but she got shot like 4 or 5 times. So, but what's also interesting is that we see Jace pick up a teddy bear, and I think in that moment he realizes, wait, there were kids here, because none of the stuff said anything about kids. It was just kind of like, oh, we got this information about the Morlocks, not realizing there were like women and children there. The fact is, he probably wouldn't even have cared about the ladies, but the fact, because all the people that stay behind at the end were the fighters, like all the innocent, like literally the only ones you killed were the fighters. The regular people, now they're gone. Like, because even he had reservations about, because like, oh, you know, because he has a problem with mutants, you know, but he also says like, oh, I don't have problems with mutants, just law-abiding mutants, that's fine, but those who break the law, it's one thing. The fact is, they weren't breaking the law. They literally have kept to themselves the entire time of their conception, and you, like, for the past, 8 years? Well, the Morlocks have been around a while, but it wasn't until, 8 years ago that they shut themselves off from everybody. But the fact of the matter is, like, they kept to themselves, and you slaughtered them, or was about to slaughter them. You killed a few, but it's still sad. So, once again, it's that situation of, what are you doing in your daughter's name? Like, he always justifies things, but it's like, eventually one day you're going to have to open your eyes to realize, how clouded by hate your judgment is. It's not like you're looking at this from a very unbiased opinion. Your opinion has always been biased when it comes to mutants. So it's just, I'm curious to see when will his eyes be open. Maybe they never will be. Maybe it'll take one of them taking him down permanently. Especially after this. I mean, it's like after everything that happened in Atlanta, now this, it's like he's just crossing lines. Plus he grabbed and tortured John. So I don't think there's any more reprieve for him. For some people, and John in particular, maybe for Marcos too, because Marcos has crossed that line, back in his, cartel days. So maybe given, this circumstances, he might be the only one that can keep John at bay, like from fully going after Jace on a suicide mission. Just, I don't care what happens as long as I kill him type of thing. So, that's a sad thing. You could, Clarice made up her mind. She fought for what she believed in. She sacrificed for what she believed in to help innocent people, and it's like you can't fault her for that. Like her and John may have disagreed about certain things, but it's even something Marco says. Like, the fact of the matter is, she's trying to help people in her own way, and she did. She made sure that everyone that could escape got away. So her sacrifice wasn't in vain. It's still just heartbreaking, especially like where her and John were. Like, he wanted to talk about things when this was all said and done, and he won't ever get that chance. Potentially, like I said, depending on whether they killed her or not. But I get the feeling like they did. But there's still that part of my brain holding out, being like, maybe not. Maybe, like I said, maybe they have her. There's no way for John to know unless they go back down there. But they can't go back down there to check anyway, because it's like they'll probably be staking the place out, trying to wait and see if the Morlocks might come back. So I'm definitely very interested to see what the next episode has in store for all of this. As Lauren and Caitlin, as well as the mutants that they're riding with, are running from the police. Caitlin going all badass, shooting at the cops, and then driving through their car to try and get away because Lauren's powers haven't kicked back in yet. And so they're on the run trying to get away. So are the ones that Reed and Marcos are driving away. And I'm so curious to see what are my thoughts about whether my thoughts about Reva were right about what she has planned and stuff like that. I'm sure we're going to see next episode. I'm sure news about what happened to the Morlocks. The fact is, only some of them died, but that might be enough. It might not just be like some of them died, and the others ran. Some of them being survivors and having lived, because she probably never had. Because she was even kind of because even Ron was like, oh, it's kind of a suicide mission. It's like they'll probably die, and they're like, yeah, don't tell them about the death part. Like only 2 of them. Well, 3 of them died when it came to the Purifiers. But the fact of the matter is, it was probably something that, I don't know what she was expecting. Was she expecting them to succeed in any shape or form? Or did she want them to lose? I don't know. We'll kind of have to wait and see what's in store for this in the next episode. And now moving on to this week's episode of The Flash. A great episode. It's so interesting because basically they need to make the cure, but the cure is going to need 29 months to kind of go through. But to kind of supercharge it, make it faster, Barry takes it into the Speed Force. Which once again, I think is kind of interesting, just kind of talking about it. Like, the Speed Force isn't pissed about the whole, like, it's still thinking you were in there. It was trailing after you when you left, but I guess it kind of was like, I'll let you go for now. Like, things are necessary, like, the Flash is needed, so I don't know. Like, we still have never gone back to that, to the Speed, but maybe it has something to do with all the stuff that Barry wrote down when he came out of the Speed Force in Season 4. Maybe there's something there. Maybe the Speed Force left an important message. But, like, subsequently since getting out, like, Barry went back in, but then, like, it didn't catch him when he was trying to go back. I forgot what the reasoning was that he went back in like that, but nevertheless. What's really interesting about this episode is Nora's stressing out because she's like, okay, I gotta handle all the things while Dad's away. Well, if I screw things up and stuff like that. And so this episode is a very interesting time loop episode, which technically speaking is the first time loop in the sense of like kind of like a Groundhog Day, living the same day over and over again. Except in this case, it's an hour. First one in the Arrowverse, and the reason why I was saying technically and all that, because there was one in Legends of Tomorrow last season, but it doesn't technically count because it was all a simulation, so it doesn't technically count. But Nora's situation is very interesting because that's why I was curious about her thing. Like, she was time traveling, but I'm like, how did she not create a paradox? because like I feel like there should have been another version of herself that she was avoiding, but it's like every time she reversed time, it's like, oh no, I'm here. So it's like, I guess it's because of her ability, like she's able to reverse time but keep herself reversed with it. Like she reverses with it. Like that's so interesting to me, like how that ended up working out like that. Just every time she did, I was like, what? Because like before, it's interesting too, because like, well, because her normal circumstances is like she can like reverse time a little bit. That's kind of like her special thing. But normally it was only like a few seconds. She was literally rewinding almost an entire hour. I don't know how she did that, but I guess it's like the stress. And I mean, you know, once your emotions are flooded, like the fact that seeing like Caitlyn die in front of her set her off. That like she's like, no, I can't let this happen. Because on top of like, oh, Caitlyn, someone that's a part of her family, this team that she's a part of, dies, and you know. And plus feeling like probably she feels like she let them all down, like she keeps rewinding time. What I also thought was kind of fascinating is every time she rewound time, Cisco would end up picking a new, like rather than being like, oh, I'm gonna be first he was the business dude, then he was the gym dude, then he was the model dude, and it's like, wait, why is it he changing every time? I mean, everyone else is doing the exact same thing. So maybe just because things played out a little bit differently, a different paper that, you know, when Ralph was quote unquote cyber stalking her, but not really cyber stalking her, as he wants to kind of put it, that maybe a different one got in Cisco's hand each time. But what also came to my mind is like, maybe because it seemed like the vibing didn't really kick in until he accidentally touched Camille the second time through, and then subsequently every time like he'd vibe in and be like, yo, what the hell is up with this? This is weird, but he couldn't quite figure it out. And the sad thing is like Nora tried over and over again. If it wasn't Caitlyn, it was Ralph, and if it wasn't them, it'd be Sherlock or Iris. It was just, there was no winning. Even Cecile gets dragged into it. It's like, and she can't go past that hour. She tried to go into the Speed Force, but the Speed Force wouldn't let her in. Now, I'm wondering, was that specifically a point that kind of, was that supposed to be like a teaching lesson, the reason why the Speed Force wouldn't let her? Or was it just because of her power, like it being in this like tumultuous mood of just kind of kicking in like after a stress point, that because of that she couldn't activate it? It's hard to say in that regard, but I just find it so fascinating, a lot of that stuff, because like I said, because even using an example, like anytime Barry reversed time, like, I mean, that's the thing, like, I'm forgetting, she is time traveling, but they did use the term reversing time. She's reversing time. Time travel means that you're kind of going into the past, so like that means there's a version of you somewhere, but like her, she's completely reversing time and herself in it, like reversing time around herself, not leaving like, you know, not creating a paradox in that regard. It's actually kind of interesting because Cisco, you know, quickly picked up on it, and they even threw out there like, maybe this is like what the legends talked about, kind of a fixed point in time, maybe like one of us is supposed to die. It's kind of interesting because Sherlock was the first one to kind of really figure out, because he started seeing Nora was kind of a little stressing, but for her it's like, I got to do something. It's like no matter what she did, she got Iris to stay there. She got Ralph to stay there. I love she got him to stay there by saying, we got brownies. He's like, ooh, brownies. And then he's sitting there waiting for the coffee and stuff. And then Iris is working on her report. And then like she takes one of the brownies. And he's almost like, what the hell? You know, so just things always just didn't work out in that regard. And it turned, which once again, interesting number. I guess, you know, because it's one of those things like, oh yeah, she reversed time 52 times. Makes you wonder, is that supposed to be significant? Beyond just being like the whole like, oh yeah, 52, and just there being technically 52 Earths at the time. Plus, you know, that's kind of like, you know, the new 52, like, because that's how much of the multiverse exists in like the DC comics and stuff like that, you know. So I wonder, is there anything else beyond that? I'm sure that's what it kind of comes down to, but yeah, Cisco actually had that interesting conversation with Nora, being like, "Oh yeah, man, you know, I wish I could say that was the first time I've ever vibed my death in a past timeline." But it's like, nope, had a hand phase through my chest thanks to Eobard Thawne, and you see Nora look down. I was like, right. I didn't even think about that. I was like, right. I forgot Eobard killed you in the timeline until Barry went back in time, which Barry didn't know that he had saved you inadvertently, because, you know, he was trying to stop the tidal wave and ended up inadvertently traveling back in time. It's actually kind of interesting because that's technically the first time Iris found out about him being the Flash, interestingly enough. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that's the day she found out, but then ended up getting a it's a whole thing, but nevertheless. But you know that's got to make Nora feel even more guilty because it's like, it's not bad enough. You find out all the stuff between your dad and Eobard. Now you also find out like, oh wow, he killed Cisco too. And for Cisco, it felt even crazy because Cisco didn't know about his powers at the time and he kept seeing it over and over again. It was like a nightmare. And so that's got to be pretty harsh, seeing your death over and over again. And you see Nora kind of going through that to a certain extent, seeing like her family and her friends, the people she cares about most in this situation over and over again. And she's stressing out because she's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can fix this. But then it's like, and that was so ingenious because like, no, we've been through this 52 times. I know the combinations. I know what leads to this and that. And so she ended up explaining everything to everybody. And then Sherlock suggests, why don't we use his dagger against him? Man, was that shit sick, dude. Because like, Iris is like, I told you we'd beat you and we will. And then like, here comes everybody showing up. Like Ralph is stretching out Frost out, Cisco opening a breach. Here comes Nora reversing time while also running forward and grabbing onto everything in front of her. Ralph's arm, using the ice to slow her down as well as the breach. It's like, that's so good. That was so freaking sick, dude. I love stuff like that. Oh, dude. Speedsters always make me lose my shit, dude. Because I never had an appreciation for super speed until this show. This show, like, awakened that in me of, like, holy crap, speedsters are insane with what they are able to do. And that shit looks so fucking sick, dude. I love it. I'm literally losing my damn mind. I had to go, oh my god, that was so cool. But nevertheless, like, she pushed the dagger into him. And I wonder if it had... Well, it didn't stab the right side. Because, it stabbed his left side. But I wonder what would have happened if it had ended up in his right side. I don't think it was in... No, it wasn't in his right side. It was in his left side, right? Unless I'm misremembering it. Nevertheless, Cicada ends up bowing out because it's like, yeah, we did it. We saved the day. And I love when it's all said and done. Barry shows up and is like, yo, what did I miss? And it's like, dude, that's incredible. It's like you just have perfect time because Iris and everyone's just like... okay, having to explain everything to him. But really quickly, it is actually kind of sad about the whole Cisco situation. Like, every time the date wouldn't work out in some shape or form. Because, like I say, because he wasn't being himself. Because he feels like it's hard to be himself around Camilla. Just because, I guess, because he doesn't feel comfortable being himself. Just because things didn't work out with Cynthia, Gypsy. So for him, maybe it's like, maybe I'm not good enough to be in a relationship or anything like that. So... maybe I should try being someone else. But I think that's also the thing of like those other people that she dated. It's like she doesn't want anyone like them because she dated them and things didn't work out. So, but luckily Cisco got it right in the last time. He was just kind of himself, kind of his nerdy self, and she really appreciated it. He ordered the coffees ahead of time, and I love those ladies being like, not like all these other men in Central City. And then the other lady's like, but it's like, hey, Cisco, got it right this time. So I thought that was kind of pretty neat. And it's like, hey, things between you and Camilla are picking up. Now, the other interesting side of things with that, also, I love that Ralph was trying to give him advice and stuff like that. And Cisco didn't really want to listen to it. And he was just kind of like, man, he got in my head, didn't he? Everyone kind of bailed out and stuff like that. And even Nora was there to kind of try and bail Cisco out of it. I thought it was kind of neat. But, first you had Ralph's 27 steps to getting over heartbreak. And then, The Art of Love by Ralph Dibny. So that was interesting. But the real funny and not funny, but interesting thing that went down was Barry explained. He's like, wow, 52 times. He's like, well, technically 53 because we're currently in it. And Barry's like, wow. He's like, the fact of the matter is, you can't be doing that just because it's like, and I love it. And it's such a mentoring moment. The moment, like back in season 3 after Barry, came back to the new timeline after erasing Flashpoint. He tried to fix that timeline again. And, Jay Garrick showed up and had the exact conversation he's having with Nora. And it's kind of like passing on the torch a little bit. Even doing the same thing with the cup thing was kind of interesting. And explained it to Nora. Because once again, Nora knows nothing about this. Because everything she knows about time travel and just how all this works is all based off of... Because I'm sure all this information, like a lot of the finer details about Barry aren't in the Flash Museum. It makes you think like a lot of stuff that Nora might... Well, most of what she knows about her dad is from the museum, but it didn't. None of that taught her how to be the Flash. That's just kind of like, oh, these are the amazing highlights of the Flash. Once again, it talk about all his fails and the mishaps that he had. But the fact of the matter is, like, Eobard was there to kind of be like her speedster teacher, and so in his regards of like, it seems like he didn't explain everything, because if he did, because he knows if because she's so desperate to get her dad back, try to stop Cicada, do all this good. She's just trying to be a hero, and she's a girl that misses her dad, who's never really had him around in her life. She misses him like crazy, loves him, and wants to get him back, wants to kind of, because I think for her too, it also means fixing so much in her own life. Maybe like now it's like her dad will be there in her entire life, and her and her mom's relationship will be very different too. Like, she'll, never have to worry about things being what they are now. She won't even have to worry about blaming, Iris on some level, because it's just everything will have worked out, But Barry's like, things worked out this time, but who's to say what are the consequences for what you did? There might be ripple effects you don't know that are affecting other people. You may not know. I mean, Barry speaking from personal experience in that regard. Like, I don't know if Barry's really broken down just how much he knows about what he, even talking about this, I mean, let's not forget, this is still a timeline created from him reversing Flashpoint, so that this isn't even the original timeline that he's familiar with. Let's not once again forget that Eobard changed the original timeline in the first place, so much is different. So, but what's interesting is, Barry having to explain it to her, being like, there's no, like, reversing time, like there's no perfect way to handle that situation. She's almost like, what, there's not? He's like, no, like, we're not gods, we're just people with exceptional abilities and stuff like that. But like, because it kind of creep in her head, it's like, wait, so no one knows how to perfectly handle this whole time travel situation without there kind of being like, there is no way to fix it without there being consequences. And that's why she went back to Eobard, like, do you actually know what you're doing? Because it's like, hearing Barry say that, it's like, yeah. Now, to be fair, Eobard is a whole anomaly on his own in many different regards, because he somehow managed to squirm his way around the timeline without issues. He's literally the only one that hasn't suffered ramifications. I mean, because that's what pissed Barry off so much. It's like, Eobard has literally trampled all over time. Let's not talk about, not just the Flash stuff. Let's not forget, going to a different Earth and everything like that. But that's kind of a different thing. I mean, who's to say if he did any time traveling Earth X? But then there's also the whole Legends things. Like, he messes around a time and he never suffers the consequences for it, because the bastard is, I guess he's worked this out for such a long time, access to technology in the future. But it's like, how do you handle time travel the way you do without no one else? I mean, to be fair, there are probably consequences for Eobard doing what he's doing, but he's so fixated on his goal of doing whatever he wants to do that he doesn't care. For him, it's like, oh, we'll stop Cicada, and the fact of the matter is we'll save your dad. It's like, why? Once again, he's like acting like he's so reformed. Why do you want to save Barry? That's what I cannot understand. The man you've hated so much that you literally went back in time to try and kill him before he was a kid and ended up killing his mom. Like, I mean, to be fair, you went about giving him his powers early enough so that he could take you back home to your original time. But it's like, I just don't know what Eobard has planned. Like, is he the reason why Barry disappeared in some shape or form? Or like, I mean, who's to say that this is the Eobard from actually 2049? I mean, to be fair, like, he's from much further in the future, isn't he? He's from like, I want to say he's from like this. Is he from the same time as the Legionnaires? I don't know. I don't remember if they ever, maybe they did early season, but I don't ever remember them specifically saying what time period Eobard's from. I'm just chalking it up to think like the 3000s just because of the Legends and stuff. Not the Legends, but the Legion. But maybe that's not the case. Maybe he is from like the 2000s, and I just am on. Either way, it's so interesting. But we also have Sherlock getting into the position that he is deciphering Nora's notebook, where it basically has everything. So now it turns into the situation of, now what's that going to mean, and what's that all going to come down to? Because let's not also forget, like, Iris kind of chewed him out the last time he was investigating Nora. But now, I don't know, when the secret comes out about Eobard, man, things are going to get crazy. So I'm very excited to see what the next episode has in store for us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.